and thank you for joining us yet again right here on Transforming Families. Thank you so much for tuning into CAC TV. My name is Faith Kaulu. As we go on with today's discussion, definitely interact with us on our social media pages. That is CAC TV Kenya on Facebook and YouTube. And if you'd like to send us an SMS, you can do so on our number. That is 011220044, and we'll be looking at it. Today we want to talk about pregnancy and to especially centralize it on when pregnancy is unplanned or unprepared for, and you want to understand how to deal with this because it is a situation that arises and so many questions are asked. So that is the discussion we're having on board tonight. Do let friends and families know so that they can tune in as well. And to steer this conversation in the right direction, with me tonight is Reverend Edward Karanja, who is a minister with the Presbyterian Church of East Africa, as well as a marriage and family therapist. Thank you so much, Rev, for being here today.
Thank you very much, Faith, for having me here on Transforming Families program. It's always such a pleasure for me to be here and to be with you.
Sure.
And like we always say here in Transforming Families, stable families for a stable society.
Yes,
Thank
indeed.
you.
Thank you as well. And at the very far end is Professor Catherine Gashuda, who is a counseling psychologist as well as the director of the Kenya Institute of Business and Counseling Studies. Thank you, Prof, for being here.
Yeah, always happy to be here to discuss family matters and to remind ourselves that families and even marriages require a lot of work, but it's worth the work.
It is worth the work indeed at the end of the day. I call you to the power duo because when we are here on the program, I know we are going to learn a lot and it's going to be a very interesting discussion. So always an honor, and I'm always glad to have you. And today when we talk about unplanned pregnancies, we acknowledge that it is a very sensitive issue, especially in our African setting, because when we term it as unplanned, in Africa we view any pregnancy as a blessing. So we wouldn't particularly call it unplanned. So of course I'm starting by saying this in case any of our viewers are wondering why are they calling it unplanned pregnancies. But of course we understand when it comes to life as well, when I look at it from a point of financial stability, emotional and mental health, we get to understand that a couple do sit down and decide when it is they want to have a baby, and sometimes a pregnancy can happen when they did not want it to happen. And that is what we want to look at it tonight, and I hope you do understand where we are coming from. Let's start by talking about, when we say we want to talk about unplanned pregnancy, Prof, then we ask ourselves, then why is it important, first of all, to plan for pregnancy, and what then does it entail when a couple sit down and say, okay, let's plan ahead of how many babies do we want to have, planning for pregnancy and children. Yeah, why is it important and what does it entail?
Right. This is a very important topic because we deal with a lot of people who are so guilt-laden because they aborted, simply because it was an unplanned pregnancy. And when they need children now, they cannot get the children because of what they did when the pregnancy was not planned. And this gives now credence to the need for planning for a pregnancy. That one is actively having sex. That means that this person would need to think through what are the consequences of having sex that is not protected, because eventually if this is a person who is post-pubertal, this is a person who eventually is going to conceive. And therefore planning for a pregnancy is important. In many ways for the self, because the individual who is going to be carrying the pregnancy would need to be emotionally ready for that pregnancy. Because you're going to take it to term, and for one to walk through all that journey to term, that means that you need to feel that you do not have a disconnect with what has happened to you or with the baby who is growing within yourself, because you are damaging that baby, because the baby will react in certain ways when they are born because of that rejection in the mother's uterus. So there is a need for the mother to be very ready for carrying this pregnancy. The other thing is you need to ascertain that you can be able to handle all the needs of the child. The needs of the child will include what the child is going to wear, where the child is going to live, whatever else that the child is going to be needing, like education, shelter. All those things are going to be very vital when it comes to a baby. Because again, when you subject children to poverty when they are very small, then that means that they will always struggle in their own life because they were not provided for the way they need to be provided for. The other thing is when it comes to even one's spouse, that both of you need to think through how many children do we want and when do we want to conceive, so that we can take responsibility of this baby, whether it is when the baby is growing in the uterus and even after that. So we are looking at so many factors. Emotional, are you ready for it? Are you, both of you, ready for it?
Right.
Because sometimes we see the lack of planning and the eventual getting pregnant. A man is the one who is going to say, can you abort this child because we were not ready? And the lady is saying, me, I'm not going to do that. It is immoral for me to do that. And you see now, because they were not in the same mind and they had not planned and they had not looked into, in the event maybe we get a child that we had not planned for at particular times, then what do we need to do? And how are we going to receive the news? And eventually, what kind of decisions are we going to make? So planning helps a lot in coming into terms with what it means to be pregnant and even taking care of the children after that.
Okay, I really like how you put it, and the questions that you raised, at the end about when it happens unplanned, then what are we going to do, has reminded me of one time when we were talking about, I believe it was marriage and premarital counseling classes, where you mentioned that this is something you take couples through. Then here comes the question: is this something you talk about with them? Planning for children, what to look forward to. Yeah.
One, by the way, you're looking very smart. I love
Thank
the
you.
combination of your, is it yellow, orange, and black?
Yes.
It's
Thank
coming out
you.
very well. And your face too. And like Prof says, you have very good natural hair.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks.
Indeed.
Yes. One, I want to begin probably from where Prof has left it and say, when the issue of the pregnancy comes before you have planned for it, unfortunately, many times we tend to blame the lady. Mbona hukujipanga, kwani hukujua siku zako, mbona ulijiachilia. And that is a very big disconnect we normally have. And that's why now in the premarital sessions, I try to take couples, especially one of it is planning for the children, and planning together. That the responsibility of calculating and distancing the children, if you need to distance them, is not solely on the lady. It is also on the man. Because the man can also be the one to do the family planning.
Yes.
Because the man, and I can say that here on public TV, the man can be using the condom. It doesn't have to be to the lady going to do the pills. Because especially when the lady does the pills, it is those are hormonal drugs that one takes. So they interfere with your systems of the body. So sometimes one may not even be thinking they can have a baby, yet the baby comes. And that's why I always send people out to go and speak with a gynecologist, so that they can be able to also give some professional advice on the planning issues of the baby. But when they use the condom, it's very easy, especially for the man, because there is no side effects about it. There's no hormonal thing. So the person to even take a bigger responsibility when it comes to the issues of the family planning is the man. What the lady would say, like, hey, maybe this week, the whole of this week, I don't think I'm safe. So the guy, man, take the responsibility. So not always telling guys, the ladies who do all those things like the TL, the pills, and I'm telling you, they take a woman through a hell of a thing. I love when the pregnancy comes, who carries the pregnancy for 9 months? The lady again. All the guy did was some little enjoyment of few minutes, and here, and walked around saying, "Mbona hukujipanga? Mbona huku?"
Yes.
So I always advise couples that it's good to know that the responsibility lies on both of you. Yep. That's something we discussed, in the pre-marital session. And it's important to plan that, because besides the, unplanned pregnancies, there is also the issue of delayed pregnancies.
Right.
You want a pregnancy to come, but it's not coming. But I know now we are talking about that pregnancy that you never planned. One, begin with, no one should be blamed. It takes two to tangle.
Yeah.
The lady never got herself pregnant. So when it happens, don't blame anyone saying, "Ukujipanga." Then before you smacked it, you needed to have wrapped it, so before you did this. So it also has to always remember, it is also my responsibility as a man in that family or whatever it happens. Yes.
Okay. I like how, you've been bold and said it as it is. Hakuna kuficha.
Yeah.
You hit the nail on the head. And I think that's how we need to go moving forward, because we need to stop pretending and wanasema kujibu with humility. You don't want to say things openly.
You see, unfortunately, Faye and Prof, I don't know why everything else is okay talked in public, discussed in homes, other than sex. Everything is okay. But the moment you talk matters, childbearing and sex, you are uncouth, you are uncivilized,
yes.
You are unschooled. Yet all of us are a product of sex.
And not saved.
Yeah, all right. Hiya, let's continue with that discussion.
The reason why
today.
we are alive,
yes,
because it happened.
Yes, true.
So
even
walk around,
viewers.
even our viewers. The reason why we have a viewer
Yeah.
is because sex took place. That's why we have a viewer.
Yes,
Indeed.
We are.
Yeah.
I always see people when they come to the church for children to be baptized. And they are born again, spirit filled. They are holy with their dresses flowing all the way down. And they hold the baby in such a holy way. You would imagine the baby just dropped from heaven. Boom.
Yeah.
All right, you can
All
go on, Faith.
That's
a topic for another day.
Discussion today. Prof, we are looking at unplanned pregnancies. If this happened in marriage, of course, I like what Rev has said, that no one is to blame. And indeed, I think from studies and stories that are told, men, it is true that they like to blame the woman or the wife, rather in this case, and say, but why did this happen? I thought we are preventing it in this way. And now looking at from a perspective of marriage, here's a couple, they're not ready for a child for one reason or another. Of course, looking back at the reasons you gave earlier, and they feel like they're not ready for that child, Prof. Reverend's mentioned that sex is something that is talked about in very hushed tones and low voices. Then something else I'd like to add on that list is abortion as well, or getting rid of a child. But here's a couple who have, or rather are pregnant, and the child is unplanned for, and probably one individual feels like, we are not ready for a baby. How does that discussion go on? How to have that discussion as a couple, or rather sort that issue out? Yes.
Yeah, certainly when they discover that the lady is pregnant and they're not ready for that child, maybe the lady is in school, not completed school, or financially they are low, or basically they had not factored that they need to have a child at that time. It is very overwhelming. You become panicky, you become anxious, you get overwhelmed, and you're not able to think through this situation very well, both of you also. Because if both of you are feeling that this is not the time that we needed a child to come, then you can see that both of them, they are not in the right space for them to be able to talk through this particular issue in ways that are going to be constructive. But there are some who are able to say, let's go down, let's come down,
Yes.
let's give ourselves a week or something. And when we come back, we are going to be more logical in the way we are going to look at this matter, so that the decisions that we make thereof are going to be binding for both of us. But if you can't be able to do that, seek help, seek professional help, so that you can talk about this, because you need some certain form of debriefing. It's okay. When people get pregnant when they have not planned, they feel this way, and it is normal to feel this way when you had not planned for it. So helping couples to talk through such an issue includes helping them to be able to see that their emotional space is crowding in, rather than them expanding an emotional space, so that they can see the place of a child in their relationship. Whether they had other children or they didn't have other children, this is the first child that they are having, or they are thinking they are having too many children that they cannot be able to take care of. The case is the same, that they have a very narrowed emotional container or bucket that they need to expand. Because once you see it, once emotionally you are able to expand your container, the mind is able to say, by the way, I think we can be able to handle it. We are the ones that are limiting ourselves. There are certain things that we can do to increase our financial portfolio, so that even this child can be taken care of. Because when they are coming to you, or even when they are talking amongst themselves, they do not see options or alternatives. That's what happens when we are so overwhelmed and we are at the edge of ourselves. But when they start talking about this, and they start seeing options, they start seeing alternatives, they start thinking now much more logically about this particular issue, they are able to step in the space of spirituality in what is happening. Because in the beginning, you even don't see God. And if you see God who is very unfair. Why are you giving us children at this time when we are so unprepared for parenting at this time, this child who is coming? So I would say that it's difficult. We appreciate it's difficult when you have not planned for it, but you can talk about it, both of you. And if you feel that you're not able to crack it, you can include a third party. That can be a friend, that can be your best couple, that can be your pastor, that can be professional help from a counselor who is trained to help you to think through this particular enigma, because it's looking like an enigma. It's looking like it's bigger than the two of you, so it needs to be cracked by another person who is going to help you to make it smaller, so that you can contain it and you can feel, yes, we can manage it. We now see it's not bigger than us, it's not bigger than our God. Sincerely, we'll be able to handle it.
I like how you put it, because we've had individuals who've come out to confess publicly that initially they didn't want the pregnancy, but they gave themselves time, and they're glad that, you know, everything happened as it happened, even though it was unplanned, because now they're happy. Of course, others have mentioned this child is a blessing and all that. So you've had people actually who didn't want the pregnancy, gave themselves time, probably sought help, as you've mentioned, and then now they're happy that they made the decision they made to keep the child.
I was actually listening to a story of a gynecologist who is so good, such an expert, who was saying, you know, my parents didn't want to have me. They had even considered that mom needed to abort me, because they were feeling not financially grounded to bring me up. And here I am. I'm helping so women, you know, to give birth. And you can imagine such a resource to the country who would have been exterminated even before they saw the world.
Okay.
Well, well said. You have also complemented it in a very big way. The Bible says clearly the seed of the womb is a blessing. And it's clear that the seed of the womb is a blessing. Psalms 27, you know, the children are a heritage. They are a blessing. And when that seed of the womb comes to be, it's indeed a blessing. And the moment you look at it as a blessing, there is a way as a parental, because there is a parental blessings, the child becomes a blessing. It may not be planned. It may be planned, but it's the seed of the womb. You know, every good gift comes from the Lord. A child does not just come from the man, you know, fertilizing that egg. No, it comes from God. There are enough men who try to get a baby, enough women who try to get a baby. People have tried all systems, including the IVF, surrogacy, and all that, and the baby has not come.
Yes.
So you who have gotten a baby, first of all, look at it as a blessing. I know it's easier said than done. You know, when you say it's a blessing, look at the child as a blessing and all that. But I want to begin from there because I believe in the Word of God. I believe in the Bible. If there's one thing that gives me hope, and I have seen giving hope to millions of people, is their faith in God, the faith in the Word of God. There is a way, even in the most difficult situation, there's a way the Bible speaks life to you until you start seeing life where there was no life. And I don't know how and what people do when they don't have faith in God. Because faith, of course, is substance of things hoped for yet not seen. Faith has a way of like, I have a baby here, today born, only one day. And I look at that baby and I imagine there will be a president here. I imagine there will be a businessman here. There will be a businesswoman here. And I live with that faith. The child troubles me. I have faith the baby will change along the way. I have seen parents who have held on to their faith. And a child is rebellious in high school. And a child, you hear parents saying, who knew Tundu to us? Is it Aisha too? This child is very bright. I know this child has a great future. That's faith. And finally, the child turns out to be a great person. There's even one person in this country who was the director of public prosecution, had even dropped out of school. It is the sister who pleaded with him to go back to school. He was sharing that. And even the parents, had almost given up on the boy. And he went back to school. And the gentleman, ended up becoming a public prosecutor in this country. So you can only imagine that, from, dropping out of school.
Yes.
It is faith. Faith is so important, and faith in God. That's why I say, I believe in the Word of God. The child is a blessing. However, there is a pregnant issue here. Not the pregnancy. The pregnant issue is that one has conceived without planning. At that moment, even if we tell them it's from God, they don't see. They see trouble. They see difficulties. They wonder why and how did this come to me. And I've encountered people who have done that. I even encountered, people, and that one was very interesting because they go to the gynae. The lady was not feeling well. It is 2 months, 3 months, she's unwell, and she had no idea she's pregnant because she could not imagine. The other children are big. Here is now, you're telling me I can be pregnant. How? She wasn't feeling well. And they go to the doctor, and the doctor says she's expectant. And they try to kuruka, no, it can't happen.
Yeah.
And the doctor says, this is even a big baby, It's so obvious. The doctor cannot even believe, the guy, that you are not aware you are pregnant. And
yet you've been there before.
You've been there, or before you are a mother. How could you not? And it's denial. Like, you really deny, you even cannot feel. It's like when one wants to be pregnant, you can even start feeling like you're pregnant, only to go and realize you are not. So this really wasn't. And at that particular moment, the husband, before the doctor, blamed her badly. Kind of, it was a real exchange, badly in the presence of the doctor. So after that, the doctor asked the man, because he was very angry, he stormed out, asked him to leave. So it's the guy who picked the phone and called me. and told me, there's someone I'm sending to you. Where are you? It was a Wednesday, thank God I was in the office. There's someone I'm sending to you. So this is she came, and the first thing she broke was to cry. A lot of tears down. And shared the story. To cut the long story short, you'll be amazed how within less than a month, the man had come around, supported. You should have...
Yeah.
Okay.
You should have seen them, when she was expected, you should have seen them walking around. And, using the familiar thing we like saying, tumepata mtoto wa kutoa viatu chini ya kitanda. And he was all over talking about it and bragging about it. And, of course, telling the other guys, like, you guys thought I wasn't fertile. Because,
Yeah, okay.
you thought I wasn't a man enough to see what I can do. Because the lady, both of them were a little bit advanced in age. So, what am I trying to say? Like Prof said, at that moment of madness, denial, one can easily say things that you could easily regret later.
Okay.
Because denial is there, and it's good to face the fact. You aren't planning for it. It has happened. And even there are some people who may even procure an abortion. Yet they sit back and realize that was not the right thing. Because in the moment of denial, you're like, Stucky, dog, please, get this baby out of my body. And the husband is like, yes, please. How much is it? And they pay millions. Because you are going through denial. Thus, it's good to sit back at that moment, relax, seek help.
Okay.
And I thank God for that guy. She knew they needed help at that moment. Send the guy away in his madness. And then send the girl to my office. The woman. So it is important to sit back, relax before you make any decision, and then seek help. Okay. When you sit on your own, you don't see things rationally. You see things subjectively because you only see them from your own perspective. If I sit back and I think, Prof doesn't like me, even Faith. See, even the way she was talking to Faith. You even see the way she was looking at me. You see even the way she was walking around. You saw even the way she was like, and I'm telling you, I can see everything that I want to see and accept and believe indeed Prof doesn't like me. So when you are going through a distress, a challenge, on your own you don't see things objectively. You see things subjectively. That's why it's good to pull back. Then, can you get someone else to help you see the situation from a different perspective? Okay. Yes.
All right.
So I would sit back, talk to someone.
Okay.
Yes.
Sit back, give it time, and talk to someone.
Yes.
I think we take a break right here. Of course, we'll come back in a few to continue with this discussion. So do not go too far because the discussion tonight is quite interesting, something you do not want to miss. Keep it right here.
Siku yetu muhimu, harusi yetu, uwepo wenu nyote. Kwetu ni kitu, kwetu ninyi ni ndugu, leo na kesho.
Harusi maua, ng'ari ng'ari wanapendeza.
Leo ni furaha, shangwe na furaha.
Harusi maua, tabasamu, suti na shela.
Wacha tufurahi, sote tufurahi. Siti. Haikuwa rahisi tufike leo hii. Na hapa tulipo, ndio siku yetu ipo muhimu ya harusi.
Next Monday on Rays of Hope.
God's grace is always sufficient.
The house, we were only happy when it was sunny. because the house was, the mabati zilikuwa zimetoboka kabisa. Huku kando ilikuwa imeraruka, like literally. I delayed joining school because my mom could not afford school fees.
Remember that God has a plan for you.
My mom is my hero.
Yeah.
She might not be learned, she might not be...
Join me this Monday on Rays of Hope program as we listen to the story of Ida Munzatsi on CAC TV, 8 to 9 p.m. this Monday.
CAC TV presents an induction service of Reverend Dr. Hezekiah Muraya, the parish minister, PCEA Kitengela Township. The presiding minister will be Reverend Bori Changari, the moderator Kajiado Presbytery, and the event includes the launching of 2022-2026 strategic plan for Kajiado Presbytery and signing off benchmarks. The event will be at the PCEA Kitengela Township on 18th of September 2022 from 9:30 a.m.
I've been asked so many times lately, do I fear death? No, I look forward to death with great anticipation. As I look back over my life, it's full of surprises.
And here he is,
Billy Graham.
Dr. Billy Graham. Billy Graham.
I never thought I would become friends with people in different countries all over the world.
As a child, I didn't understand all the difficulties.
A lot of times I would go down this driveway here with tears in my eyes. I didn't want to go.
He was a giant.
He was unparalleled.
For God so loved.
It was just so powerful for me.
The preacher who helped change the world is a spiritual gift to all of us.
All right, welcome back, and thank you so much for keeping it right here tonight on Transforming Families. We are talking about unplanned pregnancies, and with me is Dr. Edward Karanja, counseling psychologist, as well as a minister with the Presbyterian Church of West Africa, and Professor Catherine Gashura, who is a counseling psychologist and the director of Kenya Institute of Business and Counseling Studies. And we're talking about this very sensitive topic tonight. And there's a question I'd like to ask, because I feel it's very necessary we ask the hard questions. I want to compare abortion with sex. When before marriage we're told sex is wrong, avoid and all that, it is a sin. But in marriage you are free to do so. And here is a question of abortion. Of course, we have the whole debate of pro-life or pro-choice and all that. But I'd like to hear, when it comes to marriage, is it the same case with sex? Because when we talk about unplanned pregnancies, and Rev brought this example, there comes a time when maybe you're old enough, or maybe you just didn't want that child, and you sit down as a couple and you said, okay, let's get rid of this, and you get rid of the child. In that situation, is it right?
Right is a hard word to use, or wrong. Because when you say whether it's right or wrong, those are absolute. Is it right for me to hit feed? No. It's wrong. Those are absolute.
Yes.
So when it comes to the issue of procuring an abortion in marriage, is it right or wrong? If I was to answer absolutely, I would say it's wrong. But then you need to look into the circumstances under which you are procuring that abortion. And that's what I'm saying, and an abortion is a whole different big topic that we'll be able to discuss. Because you look at the circumstances, maybe the lady has, conceived, and the doctor advises, immediately she conceives, or along the way says, the fetus is so deformed. And this fetus is a danger to the life of the mother. And if you continue keeping this pregnancy, the mother's life is in danger.
Right.
At that moment, is it okay to procure the abortion? Because it is a treatment. This is just like the way the Bible says we should not, tattoo our bodies. We should not make marks of our bodies. But then you go to the doctor, and the doctor says you need an operation. An operation is making marks on your body. And the Bible says you should not tattoo your body, you should not mark on your body. But now an abortion is making, an operation is making a mark on your body. Is it okay to go through an operation to remove a tumor? Yes, because it's treatment. Is it okay to procure that abortion that time as a treatment? Yes, it is. So that's what I'm saying. When you say procuring an abortion or not procuring an abortion, is it right or wrong? It now becomes a challenge because those are absolutes, and you can only be able now to look into the circumstances under which that is happening.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. I like how you put it.
Yeah, very well put.
Yes,
Yeah.
indeed.
An abortion, whether in the marriage or outside the marriage, that is long. And therefore, I say it is long because as Christians, if these are people who subscribe to Christianity, then whatever you're doing is against your faith. And it needs to be looked into so that you can be able to make better decisions regarding whatever has happened. Yes, we said you're very overwhelmed. When you discover that you are pregnant, and maybe if you're advanced in age, it becomes now very, very difficult for the couple. And therefore, seeing yourself pregnant would come in with a lot of shame, a lot of guilt, a lot of we had not budgeted for this and all that. So there are many questions that come around that. So I would say that if you are a confessing Christian, and if your faith looks at that as something that is a sin, then whatever you're doing is not aligned to the values and beliefs that you subscribe to. Even for others that may not be believers, we handle a lot of cases of people who may not be very spiritual. But many years after they have aborted, they are very guilty. They still have their own values that are telling them, I shouldn't have done this. I killed a child. I needed to give that child their lease of life so that they can be able to live. So that guilt tells us that this person still has beliefs and values that are making her at this time, or even him when it is a husband, who is the one who said, let's procure an abortion. So that guilt is communicating that there are certain things that were not looked into when they were making decisions. They didn't look at their values, they didn't look at their own beliefs. I go back to a case that I had when I was a teacher in high school. And this was about a young boy who was struggling with mental health challenges and wanted mom to come to school because he felt mom didn't like him. And mom wanted to abort when she was in a nursing school. And then when she went to the clinic, she was told, you're not going to abort. You won't do that. And so she kept the pregnancy, but she never loved this child. She hated the child. Even when the child was going through miseries of life, like he could tell me, imagine I went home, I was having a plaster because I was hit when we were playing football. And when I went home, my mother even didn't ask me, what has happened to your head? That is how disconnected that she was to him. And The boy kept on saying, I know I was not budgeted for. I know I was not planned for. And I could ask this boy, how do you know that you're not budgeted for? And he could say, because my mother never bothers with me and Kaida hates me. That's how I know that I was not planned for. I was not part of what my mother wanted to do to bring me up. And so we invited the mother to come to school. And I asked her, tell me about this boy and when you were pregnant. And that is when she told me that she didn't want to keep the pregnancy. And I came to realize that children somehow come to know they were not needed. And that is why this child is saying, this child who is now big is saying, I was not planned for. I can tell it. So even as we are talking about planning, keeping the pregnancy, if you decide to keep the pregnancy, walk the whole journey. Come into terms with your own emotions, your own thoughts regarding this pregnancy, so that this child does not grow up feeling, I am not needed, I am rejected, I keep on getting a burden because they don't care about me, they don't value me, I have a very low self-esteem because of what happened. So when people come into terms with that, they're able to parent and parent ably. When they don't do that, it's a disaster in waiting.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Wow. Thank you for that. There's a question coming in here. We're talking about unplanned pregnancy. This person is asking about rape. When someone is raped, then at that point they realize they're expectant. How do they handle the situation of keeping the baby or not keeping the baby? Prof, you've mentioned that if you decide to walk the whole journey, come to terms with it. But in this case, this might be a very difficult thing to do. Speaking about this situation, how to go about it?
Yeah, still a very difficult situation because you didn't need the pregnancy. And maybe you don't even want to imagine you can have a child of the rapists who hurt you and injured you and disrespected you and pushed your boundaries to a point that they took advantage of you when you didn't want to have sex. But again, I want to say what I have said there before, that this person is needing to come into terms with what has happened. I've been raped, but do I want to abort? I don't want to abort. And therefore, you must get to a place where you accept, yes, I have been raped, but again, I don't want to commit another sin on top of what has happened. I would want to do justice and make sure that I accept this child and even love this child beyond the rapists. Because you can love the child beyond the rapist. Because the rapist is a human being. You say, this is a child of a human being. And therefore, I am going to keep this child of a human being that landed into my uterus. And I will walk the journey of loving this child so that this child can know he or she is valued beyond measure. So many of the ones that are sexually molested, are raped, they require a lot of support, professional support, so that they can heal from the injuries, the emotional injuries of being taken advantage of feeling I was treated like an object, not as a human being. So that when now you are settled in yourself in relationship to the abuse that happened, then when it comes now to taking care of the baby, you're not going to project what is unresolved on the baby. You're going to be okay. You're going to see the child as an entity. And you're not going to do to the child the things that you would want to do to the rapist, you would want to do to the perpetrator of the abuse. No, you are at peace with yourself and you can bring up that child. We have seen situations where those children have grown up very well when the mother has accepted, or even if this person is married, the father too has accepted that yes, it has happened, but abortion is not going to happen in this home. But we have also situations where someone has said, no, let me abort. Yes, I can't be able to come into terms with this. It is a very hard decision, very, very hard decision. But nevertheless, if the mother is not willing to take care of the child, unless she's willing to give birth and then give out the child to anyone who would want to take care of the child, because the alternatives are there. But an abuse situation is difficult all the time.
Yes, sir.
Very well put, and I want to thank Prof for that. She said it all that I have wanted to say, because it's a difficult situation. You are pregnant. The situation under which you became pregnant is difficult. We talked about pregnancy for, abortion for treatment, where the doctor says this is for treatment. Here is a pregnancy that is okay, it's normal, it's fine, but then the circumstances under which one became pregnant were painful. Will this baby always sit there and remind you of whose baby it is, where it came from? Will you expel this baby, do an abortion, and then you sit back for years and say, man, maybe that child I aborted might have become a lawyer, might have become a businessman. What will you be able to live with that guilt? Suppose you abort that baby, and then you get married in future, and you don't ever get a baby. Will you ever forgive yourself? You'll always be feeling like, it's because God is punishing me for what I did. It's because what I did, maybe my uterus or my system got interfered with. And so it is a catch-22. It's a very difficult situation that one gets into. Because anytime you sit around and the issue of an abortion, people are talking, and maybe you don't tell anyone, you know you're pregnant, you procure an abortion and you keep quiet. As if you do not even tell our menyamaza. Anytime you sit around, like now you're watching this program and people talk about an abortion, the guilt conscious keeps eating you up. It keeps rolling around your mind because you did it. And that is, some of these moral things that we do, and especially like an abortion, you will always be feeling like, it is mentioned, murderers. Oh, I am one of them. I am. So it's something that will live with you for a very, very long time. And that's what will be like, come to terms, you need help. Work with someone who will help you to realize that that child is, though by blood belongs to the rapist, or it was an attack. Maybe the thugs came to your home, they attacked you at night, they raped you, and you got the baby. You do not know even, you can't even put the face to the father of your baby, and the baby will be asking you in future, baba yangu ni nani, unamwambia sijui. And the baby wonders, really, mom? Yani you slept with a fella you don't know. And that's a difficult thing. So walk that journey with someone who can help you to come to terms with it. If it completely becomes difficult, and I thank God for you, Prof, you can give out that baby. You can even you can even sign papers, go through the hospital, labor ward, you don't even see the baby. And someone else takes the baby and goes away with the baby. And you continue with your life.
All right.
So there is that option also, whereby you don't have to make the baby, you go your way, and the baby goes to a home.
Yeah.
Yes. Because you never know. Maybe in future you may want to, but again, when you sign off never to go for the baby, it means you are not even aware who the child will be and all that. You have given out the right of the baby, but then you are conscious in matters of being a murderer or abortion. It is, your conscience is clear. So it's a difficult situation, but again, I say that's why you need help.
Okay.
You need help. So people think we can walk this journey alone. It's not easy. Please tafuta msaada.
All right. Going back to the example you gave us, of this couple who the husband didn't want the child, and of course later on with help, professional help, he came around.
Yes.
In a case where one partner doesn't, and they still do not want that child, then how then does that marriage survive that difficult hurdle?
It's a hard situation. One, if it's 9 months down the line, and even with the help and going for counseling and support and finding support, still the person doesn't accept the baby. And the baby is born, is in this family, and the other children in the family, and the couple, one of the persons still doesn't accept the baby, that person has some disorder. and they need to be helped. The problem is person has a disorder. The issue is the issue is not just the child.
Yeah.
They have a disorder because the child is there in the house. Your wife is breastfeeding the baby, or you are breastfeeding the baby, you don't want the, and the husband wants the baby or the mother wants the baby. The other siblings look at the child as one of their own. You are paying the school fees, you are feeding the baby, and you still don't want the baby. 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 down the line, you still don't like the baby. You have another challenge.
Okay.
So now the problem is not the child. The problem is the person who does not want the child. The individual needs help.
Okay.
That's what I don't know how the prof would think, but I think that the individual has a bigger problem than that's the baby. Yes.
Prof?
Yeah, many a times when people are having conflicts regarding, are we going to keep this child or we are not going to keep this child, they do not seek for professional help. They are talking about it in their own way, and they never come to a conclusion. This is how we would want to move forward, collaboratively, mutually together, so that we can bring up this child. So yeah, where you need a third party to help you to sort out the issue, kindly look for that third party, because there is a way in which a third party brings objectivity to the situation, so that we are not simply subjective. We are not just seeing why did you get pregnant and you're just blaming the other person without looking at yourself and the responsibility that you had in the situation. It is important to seek that professional help, so that the professional help can help you to be able to look at the reality of the whole situation and possibly what you're doing to the child. Because a child rejected by the father, this child is going to be injured throughout life, and that child should not be allowed to live their lives stunted because dad cannot come into terms with they had not planned for this child, you know. So we would urge families and even marriages where you come to a point you cannot agree, and we are talking about children, can you please seek for professional help? Because you're going to be moderated, and you can be able to talk about that issue without becoming too emotional and without becoming too irrational about the situation, so that that assistance is going to help you eventually to make a decision that is going to be for the good of the marriage. Because yes, a marriage is going to be lost if this is going to be happening, and there is going to be continuous blame. And for the good of the child, who needs to enjoy the comfort and the relationship of both the parents without their own issues that they have not resolved.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, well, we are coming to the conclusion, rather the end of today's program. I think I like how this conversation is building up and what we are touching on, very important and key issues. But before we do that, let's talk about, here's a young girl or a young boy who's gotten someone pregnant and they're not married. Perhaps they're in school, or rather are waiting to join university, and here they realize they're pregnant. Of course, the parent is disappointed.
Yes.
Some parents do this on the child, you know. I'd like us to talk about this. Is this a right step to take as a parent, or what then can they do in order? I don't want to get the answer that you'll give, but here you discover your child comes to you, tell you they're pregnant, or they've gotten a girl pregnant, and they're young, so they cannot support themselves. What's the right step to take?
Of course, it's a situation that we'll pray that our children don't get into it, but they can, because I am a product of a child who did that. Because my mom got me while she was young and not able to support me. And you know, like I say, I had said this earlier, some other time in the program, that I had my father was a Somali, so I have never met the fella. So who took care of my grandparents? And those people that know me closely even call me Karaja Washosho, because I was brought up by my grandmother, so everybody would say, Karaja Washosho, you know, the child of the grandmother. That's what happened. And I want to thank God for those grandparents, because they accepted me, they brought me up in their home. I didn't inherit. You know, I think my uncles and aunties, you know, some of them were afraid that I would inherit. So when it came to the issue of the Shambas and when my grandfather died, I could tell some of them were very skeptical, thinking I want to own something because my grandfather really wanted that to happen. And I told them, you know, even the portion my grandfather had said on me, I release it to you guys. I mean, there's a God in heaven who is able to bless me. I mean, at least my grandparents gave me a life. That's all I needed. The rest of the property, I can go find property, have a God in heaven. So I would say if a child ever gets to that situation, the best thing as a father or a mother is good to realize that this is your child. Not the pregnancy, not the baby that is to be born. If it is your son who has gotten someone else's girl pregnant, remember this is your son. And as a parent, you take responsibility over your child's problems. It's a mess of your baby. Try to deal with that mess. I'm a father to a daughter and two sons. Our daughter has just cleared the university. Now she's working, thank God. And when she was at the university, God first yesterday told her, you know what? Go to school and study. But if anything goes wrong and you become pregnant, don't try to abort that baby.
Okay.
That baby is my flesh and blood. And you're my father. Don't dare. So if anything happens to you, I am your daddy. I would love you to do a church wedding, walk down. But if you go mess around and you have a baby, do not dare abort. Bring that baby over here. You will drop out of school for 2 years and breastfeed the baby. The baby has the right to breastfeed. You will drop out of school. You will breastfeed the baby. After 2 years, I'll take you back to school and you'll continue with your studies.
Okay.
And we'll take care of the baby, go back to the university, complete studies. After that, you guys do whatever you want. I thank God none of that happened. She went through studies. Told the big guy, the brother who is following. The younger one, we haven't had that discussion. But the one who follows, because he's in the position where he also can impregnate a girl, I told him the same. Remember, if you go around messing with the girls and you make any girl pregnant, that is my blood. Don't try to hide around na kuruka na kusema si mimi. It is you. If it is you, just that is my flesh and blood. Don't look at that girl. Let us know. We will take responsibility. But remember, the baby has the right to have a father and a mother. And then you grow up with the baby. Then utaanza na kibali. You'll go back to school. We'll take care of them. The moment you complete studies, take your family.
Okay.
And go take care of your family. So I would say for a parent, if your child is in that situation, it's very painful. I pray that none of my children get me into such a quagmire, such a mess. I pray none of my kids get me into that quagmire. But in the event it happens, may the Lord help you as a father or a mother to accept that mistakes do happen. That's why the Bible says in Ephesians 4:3, bearing with each other's fault. Because the Bible knows none of us is perfect. If that mess happens to be in your house and not in that other house, don't even say, mbona wewe na mtoto wa fulani hakufanya hivyo. Mtoto wa professor alifanya harusi. I was so happy, the daughter did a very nice wedding.
Yeah, he preached. During the service,
And it was a colorful wedding. We really enjoyed the wedding. God, I would love that. So I don't go say, uliona vile mtoto wa profesa alifanya harusi mzuri, na wewe unaenda kutuaibisha. Remember, everyone is an individual. No one is like the other person. You don't know why that it has happened to you. Pray for God's grace as a father, as a mother, to walk with your child. Remember, that youngster who gets a child out of wedlock, they're also hurting. They may look very strong, saying, usiniambie mtoto ni wangu, mimba ni yangu. They may look like they are you know the way they behave, but that youngster, if they are teenagers, they are hurting. They are in pain. Walk with them because it has already happened.
Yes, Bob.
Yeah, it's very humbling to hear what Lefred has communicated with his daughter and the first son, because not many fathers will get to that level of talking to your children heart to heart regarding some of the things that happen and have happened to some parents. Young people, when they get pregnant, it's important to remember that there are so many things that are unfinished for them, incomplete for them, projects that they have not completed. Part of that can be education that they have not completed, as Lefred said. But it can also be that emotionally they have not completed the journey of being able to regulate their own emotions and be able to regulate their own thinking in ways that help them to be able to make objective decisions. That means that they need huge help. They need help from friends who are not going to be judgmental to them. They need help from neighbors who may see that so-and-so's girl is pregnant, who can say, by the way, keep that pregnancy, and we are happy that you're doing it. It can be difficult because you're going to be stigmatized, but it's about you, and you are important, and whatever you have done is honorable to you. A community that can talk positive to a young girl who is feeling ashamed of herself. And parents should not make it difficult for a child, whether it's a son who has impregnated or is a daughter who has gotten pregnant. You may want the ideal, but it's not every time that we get the ideal when we are served with the ideal. Many a times we are served with struggles that we have to go through and mature up and become the kind of people that God wants us to become. And so walking the journey with this girl or this young man is going to be very helpful and instrumental to their own continuity. Because the more we reject them and say very negative things and do not support them when they are still immature in their developmental stage, the more we are going to make it very difficult for them to come out of that stuckness and be able to move forward. So we need to appreciate it's not easy for them, and especially when a girl or a young man comes and says, you know, I've impregnated a girl or I have gotten pregnant. They are taking the courage to tell you. And we don't appreciate it's a lot of courage that one gathers to come and say, parents, I have done you wrong. You didn't want the shame. You're going to share the shame together with me. But I'm ready to keep this pregnancy. Meaning that such a girl would need to be very strong. And especially when she's going to be rejected by parents, or parents are going to be very unkind to say very negative things, because a lot of negative things can be said about when you get pregnant. And therefore, when children are young or when they are young people who have not reached a stage where they can say, I'm now ready to have a family and to get children in this particular marriage that I'm starting, we need to appreciate it's difficult for them so that we can see the task ahead of them and the kind of support that they require. Because again, when you evaluate, you can be able to see this one is requiring huge support, or this one is requiring just some support, and then they are going to get themselves out of where they are at and they are going to move on. In a situation where the person who has impregnated this girl is not taking responsibility, it becomes more difficult. In the situation where the parents of this young man are not taking responsibility, it's more difficult also. But we also know young men who can say, you know what, my parents are not taking responsibility. But because my parents, this is my seed, blood of my blood, I want to take responsibility. When you come around to the issues that you're having in your head, then please remember that this is your grandchild, or this is going to become your grandchild, and embrace us so that we can walk the journey. That can only be said by a very resilient young person.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. I think you detected something?
No, I would just say, like what I said, you have ashamed your parents. You're feeling disgraced amongst your peers. You're only 19, 20 as a girl, 21. Your peers are still bado wanaslee with their boys and all that.
Yeah.
Here you are carrying a pregnancy. It's shameful alone. You are carrying a lot of shame with yourself. By the time you pick up yourself to go to your father or your mother and tell them, it's like the prodigal son who is coming home and says, I am no longer worth to be called your daughter or your son. I have put you into shame. The last thing you can do as a father or a mother is to bash that kid as well, is to hit that baby. I love the prodigal son. The father did what? Grabbed, held his son, embraced the son, and said, this my son was lost, but he's found. This baby is already going through a lot of problems. As a father, as a mother, embrace the baby. From that moment, walk with that teenager, walk with that young man or young woman. Thank you.
Okay, thank you all. I think let's wrap it up there. I'm glad that we had a chance to discuss about that as well, because I believe it is key and important. Like how you've said, the child is already going through a lot. So as a parent, as much as it could be embarrassing, embrace them. And with that, we end today's program. Thank you so much for tuning in. My name is Faith Kaulu, and this is Transforming Families. Till next time, goodbye.
Are you looking to grow your business? CAC TV offers you a variety of advertising opportunities to suit your budget. Advertise with us today and reach your potential customers countrywide. For more information,